خلاص ممتاز. غير. يلا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum. My dear students, welcome to your speaking skills. And today is your 7th class where we will going to cover 4 important stuff. Actually, we have talked about giving advice last time. How to give an advice, right? Today we will have a short look at it. Then our main topic is how to use models. How to use models in English. And then we have more reductions. We need to understand them. And the 4th part is going to be about the participles as adjectives. The present participle and the past participle. Let us first start with a reminder, giving advice. Do you remember last time we have talked how to use should and shouldn't and ought to, followed by simple form of the verb to give an advice. For example, if someone is sick, you should give him an advice. You should say, you should go to doctor. Okay? Or you ought to go to doctor. So all of these should and shouldn't, this is a negative form of should, and ought to is used to give an advice. To give an advice. These expressions are also used to give and to make suggestions. To suggest معناها يقترح. Other expressions to make suggestions like, so these 3 expressions is used to give advice, are used to give advice and make a suggestion. Also, these 3 expressions are used to make suggestions. Like, it might be nice or good if you, for example, pay her ticket. Why don't you go to your professor? If I were you, I would visit the mall. So all of these expressions are used to give a suggestion, to make a suggestion. So I suggest. So in place of these, you can say simply, I suggest. So it might be nice or good if you should actually start after that with a simple form. Why don't you go? It's a simple form verb. If I were you, I would visit also. It is a simple form of the verb. So let us talk now more about the models, other models, not only making suggestions, maybe something else. First of all, it's more polite to use expressions for making suggestion than to use an imperative. شو يعني imperative؟ معناتها order, أمر. So it's more polite to use suggestions than to make imperatives. لاحظ الآن النقيض. Get out and take an art class. هذه مثال. Get out and take an art class. هذه الجملة imperative. فيها the imperative voice. When you speak to someone, it's better not to use imperatives. ليش؟ لأنه imperative is less polite. مش مهذب كثيرا. لكن you should say, you should add this one. You should get out and take an art class. لاحظوا, this one is more polite. So when you make a suggestion, When you suggest, it is more polite. Suggestion is more polite than imperatives. So this is the goal for our first step in this class, is to speak politely, to speak English politely, using suggestions, not to use the imperatives or orders. We are not in the military to order someone to do something. You should suggest that. فمن الأفضل أن تقترح أكثر من أن تأمر. Okay, so let us see now more about using of models. So hopefully you got the main idea right here. Okay, what are models? What are English models? هذه جميعها can, could, had better, might, must. هنا لازم تكون may, by the way. Must, ought to, shall, should, will, and would. All of these are models. For example, you can use can to talk about abilities. You may use may to talk about probabilities. You can use should to give an advice. You can use ought to give an advice and make suggestion. You can use must for obligations. You can use can and could for abilities. You can use had better to make suggestion. You can use might and may to say about probability. And you can use will to talk about your future plans. So all of these models have meanings, they have uses. They have what? They have uses. لهم استخدامات. In this class we will focus on some of them. Okay, the most common one. And I want you, while you make any conversation with someone, to use these models correctly. You should use them correctly. لأن كثير من الطلبة, they get mistaken when they use the models. Okay? For example, they give imperatives instead of making suggestions. So we have polite speech and we have less polite speech. So try to be always polite. Try to use always polite speeches. Why do we use models? This is a very simple question. Actually, everyone maybe have the same question. Why do we use them? Why, our teacher, why do I ask you to use the models? Because you use models to talk about different stuff. Stuff like obligations, stuff like suggestions, and advice, and expectations. Obligations, you can use must, for example. I'll have to. Suggestions, أخذناهم قبل شوي. If I were you. Should. Advice, we have also talked about how to give an advice using ought to, should, and shouldn't. And expectation, like may or will. So this is why, this is mainly the importance of using models. It is to express obligations, suggestions, advices, and expectations. Let us now discuss in details. Okay, we have started with the general statements about models. Then We have identified the models, and now we are going to talk about every single one. There are two kinds of models. What are they? And I'm going to explain to you what are they, okay? We have simple models. Simple models is used for present and future tenses. Perfect models to show necessity in the past tense. Okay, can you explain to me? Okay, let us go and explain it to you. Simple models, we said future and present. المودلز اللي أخذناهم كاملين لازم يجي بعديهم base form, infinitive without to. For example, we should invite your friend to my party. لاحظوا هذا should model is used for advices. إجا الفعل, the verb after it was simple or base form, which is actually future or present, whatever. We could buy some soda if you have money. لاحظوا models is talking about possibility and ability. The verb after the model was or is actually simple form, base form. The third one, you might want to call your mom and tell her you at a friend's home. You might. You're talking about probability. Want جاء base form. هذا ما نسميه simple models. Simple models. لكن perfect models احنا نقصد عن الباست. لاحظوا كيف شكل القاعدة يصبح الآن. model أي واحد من الauxiliary verbs, أي واحد من المودلز. بعدين نضع verb to have، لأنه بتعرفوا بعد المودلز لازم يجي based form. ما بنقدر نحكي can had أو can has. لا has ولا had can come after the models. فقط have. بعد have بالpresent perfect ولا بالpast it should have past participle. Past participle. Today we were going to talk in short about the past participles. Okay? So look at this example. You should have called me last night. You should have called me last night. Model, have, base form, and called part هذا بنسميه past participle اللي بيكون منضاف عليه ed. Last night. إذا ما استخدمنا ال perfect models إحنا بنحكي عن الماضي. So if you want to use models to express something happened in the past, you should have the same structure like this one. So if you want to talk about the past, you should use this structure. Second sentence. Mary should have done her homework this week. Have done. بعد have جاء past participle. We should not have made a big mess here. We should not هذه نفي. Have made تصريف ثالث past participle. لأنه في عندنا شكلين من الأفعال حكينا فيه regular verbs and we have irregular verbs. هذه بنسميها regular verbs اللي بتنتهي في ed، والأفعال الشاذة هي لها قائمة معينة في اللغة الإنجليزية. I will provide you later on with the irregular verbs. Okay. If you want, for example, to show strong necessity, like must, have to, have got to، هذه معناتها obligation. شو يعني obligation؟ strong necessity. I must go to sleep. I have to go to sleep because I'm having class tomorrow. I have got to go to sleep. So all of these have the same meaning. They show strong necessity. Is that clear? I hope so. Had better is used for warning, to warn something. You use had better to give a warning that something bad will happen if the advice is not followed. Do you understand the meaning of had better, or how to use them, sorry? For example, you had better study tonight or you might fail the test. You had better study English or speaking course or you might fail to speak very well. You had better go home now or he will be in trouble. لاحظوا الآن had better جاء الأفعال بعديها simple form. هذا verb صح؟ هذا base form. You had better study tonight or you might fail the test. You had better go home now or he will be in trouble. So we use had better to give a warning that something bad will happen if you don't follow the advice. Okay? You should use should to offer advices, and we have talked about this one last class, right? And at the beginning of this class we have talked about how to give an advice. Should means it would be a good idea for you to do something. You should eat something you are hungry. Okay? You should eat something when you are hungry. Sorry, here it's a mist, the wind. You should read a book and turn off the television. You should stop being so loud. You should have a party at the beach. In all these examples, you are giving a good idea. It would be good for you when you do something. So you're not warning someone. You're just saying, it would be a good idea if you do something. As you can see, after should, the verb is base form. The verb should be a base form. How about could or might? Could or might are more gentle than should. Have you ever noticed the difference between should, could and might? هي نفس الشيء لكن could and might are more gentle, more elegant. You could read a book. They might like the movie. We could buy some candy. I might play football. He could win your blue marble. As you can see, the verbs after could and might are base verbs. They have base form. ما في إضافات. So, I'm asking you now to do class service just by yourself. Who might want to play basketball at recess? Who should be the student of the week? Why should we go to doctor? Okay, this is just an exercise. You can do it by yourself. Okay, kind of activity you can follow to use the model. So do not forget to use the appropriate responses, the appropriate models. Okay? So let us see now the sentences pairs. هذه زوج من الجمل. And let us see the difference. شو نلاحظ الاختلاف. نقرأ أول جملة. He must be here because I see his jacket on his chair. Must. هذا شو معناتها؟ Strong necessity. Okay, he must be here because I see his jacket in his chair. هذه, it shows a strong necessity. I should buy a present because it is Julie's birthday. لاحظوا, I should buy a present because it's Julie's birthday. Here, should, it's just to give a suggestion. Okay? Or kind of advice. Because Julie is her friend or his friend, he should or she should buy a present. You could call me tonight since you will be at home. Could is more polite than should. Okay? It's more gentle. So kid here, you can call me tonight because I will be at home. They should come to my house to play Nintendo. He could win a prize if he turns in his lottery ticket. So all of these, you can notice the differences just by looking at the function of each model. In the first sentence, it was kind of obligation. It shows necessity. Here it gives kind of advice. Here it shows more gentleness, and then kind of advice, and then kind of more gentleness. Here we have kind of a conversation card, small group discussions. You can do it actually by yourself, or maybe in a blackboard. You can just put one of these conversations and try to post in a blackboard one of these. Why should the school day be shorter? School might be university, the same thing, university day. In America, they call universities as a school also. Name 3 things you should not do in a class. What could you do to be a good friend? These are very interesting topics. You can use them to build your speaking skills. What would you do if you won $1 million? If you could meet a person, who would it be? What might happen if pigs could fly or camels could fly? So these are really interesting and topics. You can have a very fun time or entertaining time on a blackboard if you post one of the questions and try to make a shorter short conversations. So yappy right here, my students. Now I guess you are successful using the models. So I like this one. It's really funny, but I'm actually a little bit sure that pretty sure that you got the idea of how to use the models. Here the side of it, understanding reductions. This is a very important lesson. We've talked about it almost every class. She made a lot of her friends. She made a lot of. ما حكينا a lot of. She made a lot of friends. لاحظوا, the long form, she made a lot of friends. هذا long form. Reduction لازم يكون في lot of. See, lot of. She made a lot of friends. Lot of friends. He had lots of problems. Lots of problems. هذه long form. A reduction حيحصل في let's. He had lots of problem. He had lots of problem. لاحظوا كيف reduction. Long form. He was able to relax. To بصير ت. He wasn't able to relax. To relax. He wasn't able to relax. Could you help me with this? Could you help with this? I'll see you later. I'll see you later. Do you know her? Do you know her? Do you know her? Do you know him? Do you know him? Do you know him? I was hurt and angry. And ما بنحكي and هنا بنحكي I was hurt and angry. لكن في spoken for short form I was hurt and angry. Hurt and angry. Hurt and angry. So again, let us read it together right here. She made a lot of friends. She had lots of problems. He wasn't able to relax. Could you help me with this? I'll see you later. And do you know her? I'll see you later. Do you know her? Do you know her? Or do you know her? Do you know her? Do you know him? Do you know him? Do you know him? I was hurt and angry. I was hurt and angry. I was hurt and angry. فلاحظوا الآن وكأنها دمجت كل واحدة من هذه مع اللي قبلها. So please do the reductions. Try to repeat and replay what I have just said. Try to listen to the audio. Maybe we will bring it next class to do some exercises about these reductions and the models. Lastly and finally, what are participles? We just talked about the past participle. Do you remember that? Models plus have plus past participle. A participle is a form of a verb that functions as adjective. As ايش؟ adjective. هو شكل فعل لكن وظيفته صفة. لاحظوا في عندنا ing participles. What are participles right here? We have bore, هذا الانفينيتيف. bored, boring and bored. bore معناها يمل. boring ممل. وbored ممل. هذا بنسميه present participle. The present participle لابد أن يكون منتهي في ing. مثلا interest, interested, interesting, interested. هذا past participle. بدي تركزوا الآن على present participle. Present participle should end with the ing. They are verbs but they function as adjectives. بينما ed participles اللي هي التصريف الثالث. حكينا bore, bored, boring هذا present participle. bored اللي هو ال past participle لازم the word should end with the verb should end with ed. interest, interested, interesting, interested, and it's also an ed participle. Okay, so participles used as adjectives. The boring teacher talked for hours. Not like me, I talked just for a few minutes. The bored students fell asleep. I read an interesting magazine yesterday. The magazine receives a lot of support from interested readers. لاحظوا الآن. The boring teacher talked for hours. هذا بنسميه present participle. هذا اتفقنا عليه لأنه انتهى في ing. Usually present participles are active. They are active. شو يعني active؟ يعني the teacher is active. The teacher is boring. Okay? بينما في the students, the bored students fell asleep. The bored. الآن مش الستودنتس المملين، هم قد ملوا. بينما هنا الأستاذ الممل يتكلم لساعات. بينما هنا المال، الطالب المال الذي وقع عليه حدث الملل، فهو passive بيكون. Why it's passive? Because it receives the action of bore. بينما a teacher is the doer of the action bore. So this is actually the difference between the present participle and the past participle. With the present participle, the doer is active, while the past participle, they are usually passive. The same here. I read an interesting magazine yesterday. So when you use the present participle, they are usually active. The magazine is really interesting. However, the magazine receives a lot of support from interested reader. هنا magazine ممتعة، هنا interested readers اللي هم مهتمين. And here we have more examples about it was an exciting concert. The excited fans screamed during the concert. Many young people experienced troubling situation, and the Samaritan befrienders Hong Kong receives calls from troubled young people. So all of these are examples using the past and present participles. Please try to understand the difference again with here examples as I have shown you in the previous slide. So do not confuse participles and verbs, by the way, because participles are not preceded by helping verbs. For example, the sputtering student wrenched down the boulevard. Here it's a participle. ليش؟ لأنه is not preceded غير مسبوقة في أي واحد من helping verbs. Helping verbs مثل verb to be بأشكاله. The student was sputtering down the boulevard. لاحظوا هذا verb. هذا بنسميه past progressive. Why? Because it's preceded by verb to be. So hopefully that you have understood most of the major points in our lecture. We've talked about the models, their functions, and then we have talked about the reductions and how to pronounce them very well, to say them very well, and finally we have talked about the participles, the two kinds of participles, the past and the present, and please do not confuse with the participles. Thank you so much for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.